Call to order.
Dr. Estrom,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here. Nice for the invitation. Our God, we're grateful for the right to make decisions this evening. Help us to make them in a way that is good for the community and good for individuals in our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Their motion to
So moved.
Second.
been moved seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. We're prepared to begin the meeting. Clerk will go through, read first readings.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement, real estate with Punjab Shahib Investment Company for the purchase of certain real property located at 325 West Columbia Street for an amount not to exceed $2 million, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement to purchase and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement, real estate with Singh Properties LLC for the purchase of certain real property for an amount not to exceed $250,000, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement to purchase and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements. Accepting the dedication of public utilities and roadway improvements for the Prime Ohio 2 replat subdivision.
These will be on it.
I have a question. I was wondering, Mr. Heck, if you might provide some additional information about item 001-23 and 002-.
Yes, Commission. So the items are interrelated, and they're, as we, the city, the county, the homelessness task force, the city and county both formed and supported, work to address the homelessness issue that our community faces as well as other communities across the country face. We have worked to be very strategic about finding solutions, sustainable solutions for our community. As you know, during COVID-19, congregate sheltering was not a good solution, as you did not want people congregating together with this disease that was ravaging our world. And so during that time, we utilized hotel rooms. We were utilizing private hotel rooms through our housing partners, specifically Sheltered Inc., but also Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, et cetera. And that was not a long-term sustainable option to continue to use private hotel rooms that were owned and operated by, the owner of the hotel. That hotel owner wanted to put those back into market rate productive use, and they're doing such, specifically at the Hampton on Left Lane. Our strategy behind this, as you know, is we've purchased the Villager, which has the potential to bring about 142 rooms online. There is some work that needs to go on to create more permanent supportive housing opportunities at the Villager. And so during the short term, we also need some other capacity building infrastructure added to this, which would be the Executive. So the Executive Inn is the hotel that is directly across from the hospital. You're probably familiar with it, corner of Lowry and North Street and Columbia. And so we will purchase the Executive. The 002-23 item are the three houses that are directly south of the Executive. And we will purchase these properties short term to continue to address the homelessness issue that faces our community and the housing crisis that faces our community. as we transition the villager into more permanent supportive opportunities with working with our housing partners, we will then phase the executive out of that strategy and open it up for a long-term redevelopment opportunity. As you know, this is an area that has seen a lot of redevelopment with the investment by the hospital, probably the largest investment we've seen, specifically in our downtown. Ohio Valley, Wendy's, the ice rink that have developed around that area. And so we'll be able to tear down the executive, tear down the 3 houses, and we'll create a redevelopment block opportunity within our downtown.
Will we be operating the executive, or again, will we call on our partners?
We will continue to work with our permanent supportive housing partners, those like Sheltered Inc. and so forth, to operate under a lease agreement, the executive, and that will stay in place so that we maintain ownership of that. We will not relinquish ownership of the executive, again, because of the long-term redevelopment opportunity and benefit that exists there. Also, I'd like to point out that, again, but for the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that came from the federal government, we would not have the ability to address the issue of homelessness in our community like we're able to do with those dollars coming to our community.
So let me make sure, let me restate what I thought I heard. We're buying the executive in because it's ready almost right now to take in some of the homeless population, including the families who may not have good housing.
Yes.
While we are housing the homeless, the displaced people at the, we will work on the village to get it up to speed and to have it more family friendly, because right now it's all single rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it will become more family friendly, and what obviously will transition people from the executive to the village. And when we're finished using the executive for this interim period, it will be demolished and the property will be available for sale.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That is the plan. I'll point out, I think you brought up a good point about the families. That's one of the things that we've seen increasingly through the COVID and the increase and rise in homelessness is the number of displaced families in our community. Traditionally, singles, single men, single women were the bulk of the population of our displaced individuals. That is not the case now, where we're seeing more displaced families, and congregate sheltering isn't as accommodating for that family structure and family support to help, again, create permanent supportive options to help them get back to a place where they feel they can thrive.
And unfortunately, COVID hasn't necessarily gone away.
It has not. I will say that the shelters, the Hartley and Norm's Place, have opened, and those are the more congregate sheltering.
Mhm.
Now, they made significant improvements, Sheltered Inc., to those facilities to be more accommodating with their HVAC system and so forth for a disease like COVID-19. But congregate sheltering is still a challenge, and having these more permanent supportive individual rooms is for families specifically is important and is an important piece of our strategy as we seek to address this.
Thank you very much.
And just to kind of underscore, these are monies that we were given from the federal government, and within those monies that were given to us, we were to use that for this specific purpose, right?
Yeah, a lot of the federal dollars that were passed down through COVID-19 did specifically call out as a goal or objective for municipalities, counties, and so forth to use to address the homelessness and displaced individual issue that was happening across the country. And you've seen that across the country, and you've seen different strategies around fixing it. This was the fastest route for us. And I say fastest, we're almost 3 years out from the start of COVID-19, and it takes a long time to develop the capacity, the
Strategy.
infrastructure necessary for what we face today.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk, proceed.
Vacating the first alley west of South Lowry Avenue from Fair Street South to the first intersecting alley.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
As we discussed last time, I moved to put this on the table, but I will not be voting for it. I think this is a mistake, and we hope in these kinds of cases that adjoining neighbors can work out whatever the difficulty is. But my understanding is that has not happened in this.
That is correct.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
No.
Ms. Phillips?
No.
Mr. O'Neill?
No.
Dr. Estrop?
No.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the National Trail Parks and Recreation District, NTPRD, for an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the maintenance of certain real estate owned by the city, and confirming and approving expenditures incurred from January 1, 2023 to the passage of this ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the subrecipient funding agreement, funding for operations expenses at emergency shelters with Sheltered Inc., to increase funding in an amount not to exceed $200,000 for a total amount not to exceed $500,000, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from December 1, 2022 to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement, real estate with Clark County Land Reutilization Corporation for the purchase of certain real property for an amount not to exceed $425,000, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement, to purchase and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering if the staff might give us some additional information on this item.
Yeah, again, commissioners, this is opportunity for us to work with our partners at the Clark County Land Reutilization, better known as the Land Bank, where we will purchase property primarily in our southwest quadrant, which is part of the Engaged Neighborhood Phase 2 area, with the idea that we'll be able to develop additional affordable housing units within that area. But also at the same time, with this purchase price, the land bank is going to put those dollars back in to that area as well through rehab, acquisition rehab, help with construction, other infrastructure like items necessary to help this neighborhood thrive.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Leland M. Rosado for plans reviewer services as needed by the city for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $225,000 for the initial 3-year period.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Safe Built LLC for plans reviewer services as needed by the city for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $225,000 for the initial 3-year period.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefor and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming and approving 2022 supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming and approving the transfer of monies among various funds and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland,
Yes. So basically what we're doing with the last, four that we voted on is to even out the end of the year. Clerk will proceed.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Graviton Consulting Services Incorporated to provide implementation services for a new enterprise resource planning ERP system for an amount not to exceed $3,467,590 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So
Second.
moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Can-Am Technologies Incorporated for a period of 5 years for the purchase and implementation of a web-based system as part of a new enterprise resource planning ERP system for an amount not to exceed $668,632 for the 5-year term and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Cherry Road Technologies Incorporated to provide the SaaS Oracle Cloud application as part of a new enterprise resource planning ERP system for a period of 5 years for an amount not to exceed $1,616,089.20 for the 5-year term, and a contract to provide the PASS Oracle Cloud application for a period of 1 year for an amount not to exceed $32,007.55 for the 1-year term and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded.
I have a question for Mr. Bechtel. Does this mean the green screens are on their way in a couple weeks?
Well, I won't say a couple weeks, but
I
they
mean,
are,
well,
they
this
are,
goes into effect in a couple of weeks.
yes, we're heading in that direction finally.
I've never seen you smile quite that large.
There's
a big
A couple
smile.
reasons for that.
That's because he's going in a couple weeks.
No tie tonight.
Yes.
One of the things I recently learned, as early as tonight, is that this system, even though it's millions of dollars, it's upgrading a very, very old system. We knew that, but the ability to communicate the details of the budget to the community is something that just was enlightened to me tonight, that we'll be able to do that. So that excites me. We'll be able to be even more transparent with how we're spending money, where the money, the taxpayers are going in our community, and I think that's really good.
Not to mention that system hasn't been updated in how many years?
Yeah.
About 30. Right. When I graduated from high school, that is absolutely accurate. That was the number that was given earlier, 1995.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrad,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming and approving the change order number 1 to the agreement between the city and Marker Incorporated for the design, build, construction of the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence at Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport to increase the agreement in an amount not to exceed $9,503 for a total amount not to exceed $8,712,012 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
This is great advancement for the air park.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill? Ms.
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a subrecipient funding agreement with Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield Incorporated, provide CDBG funding for the Health and Safety Repair Program in an amount not to exceed $175,000 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a subrecipient funding agreement with Habitat for Humanity of Greater Dayton, provide CDBG funding for the Health and Safety Repair Program in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with Springfield Foundation for a grant to partially fund Culture Fest 2023 in an amount up to $5,000. Authorizing the city manager, finance director, and director of community development to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary, fulfill the city's obligations under said grant, and comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into Amendment 4 with JCI Jones Chemicals Incorporated for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite for use by the city's wastewater treatment plant to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for a total amount not to exceed $160,000 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 3 to the contract between the city and the Shelley Company for the 2022 PI paving to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $142,930.94 for a total amount not to exceed $3,253,681.66 and to extend the project completion date to December 15, 2022, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 3 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering, Mr. Heck, is this part of the commitment that we made to the voters when they passed the additional levy money?
Yes, Commissioners, that is correct. This is our neighborhood streets paving program back in 2017 when our voters approved the increase to our income tax. We made a commitment of a minimum of $2 million a year towards neighborhood street paving. And I'm happy to say that we've far exceeded $2 million each and every year with that commitment, and that continues in 22 and is budgeted into 23.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming and approving the acceptance and/or deposit of an EMS Priority One training and equipment grant in an amount up to $675.25 from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Medical Services, and authorizing the city manager, finance director, law director, and chief of the fire division to perform all acts, deposit all grant funds, and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a 2-year services agreement with Block Group Incorporated for the purchase, installation, support, and maintenance of an automatic license plate reader camera system for an amount not to exceed $204,600 for the 2-year term and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. I was wondering if we might have some more information.
Yeah, I'll actually ask Chief Allison Elliott if she could answer that question.
Thank you, Mayor Copeland, and thank you to the commission. Good evening. So these cameras, these license plate reader cameras, it's essentially technology that can gather objective evidence of crimes through vehicle characteristics with the ability to read license plates. Where it can be very helpful for us and our community, it will allow us to gather objective versus subjective evidence, and sometimes that helps with the apprehension of maybe a crime victim or witness and being apprehensive and coming forward with some of these things that are happening. That will also help us with our investigation, but they're investigatory tools that we could use to gather this information.
Very good. Thank you.
I really wanted to focus on the word objective. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a sub-award contract amendment with the state of Ohio Department of Transportation to accept additional funds in an amount not to exceed $14,098 from the Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program for a total contract amount not to exceed $209,359. Authorizing the city manager, law director, and the director of finance to perform all acts, execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said sub-award contract amendment and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and to provide assurances and additional information as required by the Ohio Department of Transportation and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
The next, I'm sorry, authorizing the fiscal officer to create a super blanket purchase order as authorized in resolution number 6152 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I
Mr.
was
Estrom.
wondering, Mark, if you could explain in layman's language, layperson's language, what the super blanket purchase order is. It's not buying a blanket.
No, it is not, Commissioner. A super blanket is a vehicle that allows us to create a purchase order that's larger than normal. Normally, our purchase orders are capped at $25,000. In some of these instances where the prices are changing very fast on chemicals, cement, those types of things, we need to be able to react in a manner because we can't get a contract. So this allows us to put in this blanket in place and keep our operation moving forward in rapidly changing pricing time.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Next item was added to the agenda, reappointing Randy Yance to the National Trail Parks and Recreation District Board of Trustees and declaring an emergency therein.
To adopt?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Believe that finishes that off. Are there further comments from commission? Mr. Rue?
Yeah, I had a citizen that came to my work today and brought me a letter of thanks to I believe four or five of our fire personnel for how they handled a situation on, was it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, Chief? And just made it a point to write something up, came down, talked about it. It was how they handled the neighborhood and how they handled these two folks. Just it was really nice to get because I got a phone call last night that he wanted to ask if he could bring it to me, and it was a phone call I didn't know where it was leading to, and
I love
by then it
those.
was very positive. So I was really glad to get that call. So anyway, just want to compliment those who were involved in doing what they do every day. Nevertheless, it's nice to get a pat on the back from the citizens when they do that.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience want to speak to it? Anyone in the audience? If not, we're going to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.